Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the February 27th Planning Commission to order. As a reminder to everyone attending, if you could please address and be recognized by the chair before speaking, that would be greatly appreciated. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the January 23rd, 2023 Planning Commission minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion of those minutes? No discussion? All in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Approval of the minutes passes. We'll now have our open forum for an opportunity for the public to address the Planning Commission for items not on the agenda. If you wish to testify at the open forum public hearing, the call-in number for tonight's meeting is 415-655-0001 with a passcode of 1234. The use webinar access code is 2456-607-0227 with a passcode of 1234. For those joining via phone, we will get a message when they're called in to speak, so there will be about a 10-second delay before they can be heard. Also, you may need to remind, do we have any callers? Staff? Would anybody like to speak at the open forum? Please come up to the podium and sign in with your, and speak your name, address.
My name is Dave Huss. I live on 7028 Oak Grove Boulevard. The question I have is regarding the change in the verbiage, and I'm just trying to understand it. There were lines scratched out on the existing verbiage, and they're changing it as far as, I don't know if it's minimum acreage, if they're changing the amount of acreage or the allowable residents per acre.
Okay, if I could interrupt you here. This is for items not on the agenda. There will be a public meeting open to allow you to speak a little bit later on when we get to that item on the agenda.
Okay, that was the question. I wasn't sure if it was on the agenda.
Okay. Yep.
Specific. Should I sit and wait?
About the amendment to the minimum lot size requirement later on in the agenda. We have a public hearing a little bit later on in this meeting on that item.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. At this point, if we have no one else to speak at the public open forum, we will now close the open forum. The next thing on our agenda is approval of agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Sorry, Chair Rudolph, I think you need a motion to close the open forum.
No. Just the...
Never mind.
Do we have an approval for the agenda? Do we have a second?
Seconded. It's a good agenda.
Do we, any discussion on the agenda? All right, approval of the agenda. All in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. No. The next item on the agenda is our other business. Tonight, we will be, like we do annually, elect a new planning commission chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary. Chair. Staff, we have a report. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair Rudolph. It is short. The bylaws of the Planning Commission require that the Planning Commission hold an annual organizational meeting at the first regular meeting in February and elect from its membership a chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary. Any member from the Planning Commission may nominate another member, or they may nominate themselves. A nomination of an officer requires a motion, a second, and a majority vote. According to the bylaws, Part 2 organization, a majority vote is necessary to first elect a chairperson and then to elect the remaining officers. The chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary are to take office immediately upon election and hold office until their successors are elected the next year. The chairperson is responsible for conducting all planning commission meetings and public hearings. The chairperson is also responsible for representing the commission in dealing with the city council and staff. The vice chairperson fulfills the responsibilities of the chairperson in the event the chairperson is absent. The secretary assumes these responsibilities when both the chairperson and vice chairperson are absent and signs all minutes and official commission documents. So by motion, you may nominate and elect the chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary, and staff can stand for any questions.
Do we have any nominations for Planning Commission chairperson?
Chair, I would like to nominate Commissioner Holmvig Johnson as chair.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Do we have any other nominations? Commissioner Hovig Johnson, do you accept that nomination? Okay. Do we have any other nominations? All right. We'll vote on Commissioner Hovig Johnson's nomination. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. We have a new chairperson. Congratulations. All right, the next item will be a vice chairperson. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Commissioner Keneally.
All right, do we have a
Second.
second? All right. Do we have any other nominations? All right, all in favor of Commissioner Keneally's vice chairperson, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, we have a new vice chairperson. Do we have any nominations for secretary?
Mr. Chair, I nominate Commissioner Sturza.
I second that nomination.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Oh, do we have any other nominations? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. We have a new secretary. Fantastic. The next thing on the agenda is appointment of liaisons to the City Council. Actually, City Council, Community Services Advisory Commission, Housing and Redevelopment Authority, School Board, Transportation Commission, Chamber of Commerce, and Sustainability Commission. Staff, do we have a report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Rudolph. The role of a liaison is to keep the Planning Commission informed of other work or decisions happening in the city by attending or watching meetings or reading recent meeting minutes and sharing updates with members of the Planning Commission. A description of each liaison position is below on your agendas. City Council liaison the City Council is a legislative branch of the city government. The City Council is responsible for the efficient operation of the city through the enactment of policies and ordinances that are administered by staff. The City Council meets every second and fourth Tuesday at 7 p.m. In the council chambers. The Community Services Commission is an advisory group appointed by the City Council to discuss and provide feedback on city issues relating to recreation, parks, public works, and any other issues as directed. The Community Services Commission meets on the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Housing and Redevelopment Authority is responsible for certain types of housing, economic, and commercial/industrial development and redevelopment in the city. The HRA meets every third Monday at 7 p.m. The Richfield School Board is comprised of locally elected public officials who provide strategic guidance for the Richfield Public Schools and oversee and review the school's management. Although the Richfield Public Schools are a completely separate entity from the Richfield City Government, the Planning Commission also appoints a liaison to the Richfield School Board. The school board generally meets the first and third Monday of each month at 7 p.m. The Transportation Commission was appointed by the City Council to review transportation-related topics and to make recommendations to the City Council. The committee meets the first Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. The Chamber of Commerce is also a separate entity from the Richfield city government. It provides a connection between the city of Richfield and our local business community. The Chamber's goal is to connect businesses for a prosperous community. The Sustainability Commission works to support the education, promotion, and implementation of environmentally sustainable measures and practices in the city of Richfield. The board also makes recommendations to the City Council regarding sustainability-related initiatives and policies. And staff is here if you have any questions.
All right. Do we have anybody to volunteer to be the liaison for the city council?
Chair, I've been serving in this role for just a few months, and I'd like to continue if the group would tolerate it.
Community Service Advisory Commission. Currently been doing it for the last couple of years. I can continue. Housing and Redevelopment Authority.
Chair, I've been doing that one, and I would like to continue if there's no objection.
Mr. Chair, I've been doing that one. I'm happy to continue doing it as well.
I had a thought on that commission
Yeah.
as well as the Sustainability Commission. They don't meet with as great regularity, and I wondered if some individual might take the two of those in combination. That's just a thought.
I'm open to that idea, although I recognize we are short a member tonight, so I don't want to
Yeah, the new commissioner
options.
works for the Pollution Control Agency, so maybe the Sustainability Commission might be a good fit. And since we're not maybe overcommitting on because it's not meeting as often.
Yeah, you can sign up for a club that doesn't meet.
Yeah, so I like that idea, but I'd like to wait till we have our new member here to discuss if we're going to combine any roles. But I like your idea.
Good point.
Ken at this point, and we'll wait until our new member joins us.
We still have a couple more there. I'm currently serving the chamber, and I'm fine to continue with that.
Okay.
It's usually a fairly slow news organization, but happy to.
They could.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the review of Planning Commission bylaws. I don't think we do.
Yes, Chair Rudolph, you need a motion. You can just do one motion.
All right.
of them.
And we
I'll move the approval of members to serve as liaisons as discussed.
I second.
Do we have any discussion? I'll approve. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, finally, the next item on the agenda is the review of the Planning Commission bylaws. Staff, we have a report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Rudolph. Part 3, Section 3 of our bylaws requires that the Planning Commission review the bylaws each year at the February organizational meeting. Staff is not recommending any changes to the bylaws this year. If any commissioner would like to propose a change, now is a good time to do it. You can also do it at any point during the year, but this is just an opportunity.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I feel like the bylaws as written have been working generally pretty well for us, so I don't see that there are any changes needed either.
I don't either. You know, and since we have no actions recommended, I don't think we need a motion to move on. Is that correct? Yeah. Right. The next item is our public hearings. We have a consideration of an ordinance amendment to eliminate the minimum lot size for planned unit development. Staff, do we have a report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Rudolph. So the purpose of a planned unit development, or a PUD, according to the Richfield Zoning Code, is to provide an opportunity for innovative and creative development that will complement existing neighborhood character. In exchange for flexibility with traditional zoning rules that would otherwise require variance approvals, a proposed PUD development is required to bring something unique, special, or beneficial to the community. Property owners may apply to receive a PUD zoning designation if the development is well-designed and can be successfully integrated into the neighborhood. The current Richfield Zoning Code requires that a property be at least 1 acre in size in order to receive a PUD zoning designation. Most neighboring metro cities that staff reviewed did not have this size minimum. Although PUDs were originally intended for large integrated developments, such as master planned communities, the process need not be limited to such projects. Richfield is considered a fully built-out city, and only about 1.5% of our 10,586 parcels in the city would meet this requirement. Staff finds no reason to exclude smaller-sized parcels from applying for PUD approval. The responsibility is on the applicant to show how the quality of the development is a reasonable trade-off for the requested zoning code flexibility. Staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for staff?
Could you kind of talk about what a very micro PUD might look like? Just like, say it's a single lot or something like that. Like, what might that look like versus, you know, the general implementation of a PUD that we're used to seeing?
Commissioner Hui, it depends. It kind of depends on what type of PUD. So we have, I don't have the code in front of me, of course. We have planned residential, we have planned mixed use. So it depends on the type of proposal, but if it's, say it's a small residential parcel, you could develop a single family home as a PUD if it met zoning regulations and generally followed those PUD regulations. You could develop a fourplex. You could develop a small commercial site. It would have to meet the general spirit of that PUD district.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
So in that spirit, say I own a single-family lot here in Richfield and I wanted to develop a fourplex on that. What would my process be if I wanted to do that?
Commissioner Hui, you would, if it wasn't already zoned as a PUD, you would have to apply for a rezoning, which requires Planning Commission, City Council approval, and it also may require a comprehensive plan amendment. So you would apply for a rezoning of that parcel into a PUD zoning district, and then you would present a proposal that would, as a PUD application, that staff and Planning Commission and City Council would review and find if it met or did not meet the zoning code and PUD regulations.
Okay, so it was a pretty extensive process to. Okay, thank you.
I was curious if city staff could comment on where or why this is being proposed now, and if it is being proposed for anything on the horizon or any specific directions that the city might have an eye on or anything like that?
Commissioner Sturza, this has kind of been on our radar for a while. We thought about including it in the missing middle ordinance amendment that came last year, but we thought it should stand alone and because it wasn't necessarily related to missing middle at all. There's nothing on the horizon at all that in any particular lot. This isn't in regards to any developer or any special lot at all in the city. But I will note that a lot of city-owned properties are under 1 acre in size. So for the city to have a little bit more flexibility and find a way to use those lots, this would be helpful. But there's no special reason that this is here now. It's just something we've been working on recently.
I know that I have heard of some concern that people think it's going to be something that's used a lot. From my understanding, the PUD process is a very narrow, tailored thing. It is not used for general home improvements or it's not a typical process. It's for a special project. Is that an accurate way of characterizing it?
Yes, Commissioner Holmvig Johnson. It is, if it's not already zoned as a PUD, it is an extensive process. Like any other conditional use permit or rezoning application, it requires staff, planning commission, and city council review and approval. So this couldn't be used for somebody who wanted to just have a reduced setback on their garage. That's more of a variance request. So small things like that would still go through the variance approval process. All this does is just eliminate the minimum lot size for a PUD. So the PUD process is still in place.
And PUDs have to have some kind of unique benefit for the community. It is not, because I think that's where the concern that I have heard expressed is people think that this is making major changes to how the city zoning operates. But a PUD is a really specific, narrow, tailored thing for a unique asset to the city. It is not our everyday way of developing, correct?
Yes, Commissioner Holmvig Johnson. Generally, when a developer or a organization wants to come through with a project and they request PUD, the PUD approval process, staff and planning commission and city council usually have a list of every item, like every piece of the project that does not meet the regular zoning codes. And then they have a narrative of why all of those things can't be met and how that project is going to go above and beyond the zoning code in other ways. So like, how is that project going to be beneficial? How is it going to be special?
Sure. If we could hold off any more questions and open the public hearing, we'll have the opportunity to ask staff after the public hearing closes for our own discussion. So at this point, if we could hold off any more questions, I'd like to open the public hearing to get a chance for the public to speak on this item.
I'm not sure I entirely understood the answer to the question of why the change. The concern I have as a longtime resident is, and I just found this out today looking at the zoning map. I formerly lived on 73rd and DuPont Avenue for about 23 years, and that is zoned as single residence, if I understand the map correct. And I currently live on Oak Grove, and my entire block is zoned as low development housing. And the question specifically is, will this directly affect potentially what would have been my old home and what is currently my home with the two different zoning distinctions? If, for instance, my neighbor or myself wanted to sell to an individual or developer that wanted to take a single family residents and create a duplex or create a fourplex or something. I think it would be more applicable to where I'm at right now, where the lots are a lot larger and the houses are more substantial in size. That the concern for me would be A, does it affect it at all? And B, if it does, and it would allow that developer potentially to come in and either build a new structure or reconfigure an existing structure so that it was designed as for, say, a rental for more than one family. And then what is the process? Would I, as a resident of one or the other of those homes, be notified very directly that someone in my, in the immediate vicinity was applying for this PUD status? I guess I'm just trying to understand. I feel like it's not a good thing. It's a change that rubs me the wrong way in the verbiage and everything, that it puts the onus now on the city to stop it as opposed to the developer to try to seek approval. It seems as though it's flipped it around, where somebody doesn't have to show how it's improving the city as much as us disproving that it's not better. I don't know if that makes any sense. Try to walk me through understanding why we should change.
I think the PUD is the exception. It is not the rule for zoning. So it is, in terms of changes, it's not changing the process for how one is approved. It is just changing it's allowing for smaller lots to go through the process. But as Planner Jerome said, like, it is an extensive process with the city staff reviewing it. And then before, the city staff is reviewing it, then they're sending it to the Planning Commission and the City Council for feedback and hearings. So it is the exception rather than the rule, and it is a very, very small percentage of properties in the city have PUDs. So in terms of like how it would impact you, I don't know that it really would, unless there was some unique feature of some area in your neighborhood that they wanted to do something very special for, but they would have to go through that whole extensive process. So it's not changing the default or the onus on anyone. It's still going to be on the property owner or the developer to show why they need the exception, and that why they aren't going to follow what the existing zoning is.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak at the public hearing? If not, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second? All in favor to close the public hearing, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The public hearing is now closed. Do we have any? Now we have it for our discussion. One of my concerns with this is we do, over the last 5 years, I don't think we've seen one development come through here seeking just a variance. Everything comes through as a PUD. I think it's a way that we use the zoning code to circumvent. The way we use PUDs is really to circumvent our zoning code. And I see that going down to the micro level if we approve this, in my opinion. That's just, whether it's right or wrong, that's my opinion. And that's been my experience on how we use PUDs compared to what I see other communities using PUDs. When we went through training years ago, when we first joined the Planning Commission, PUDs were supposed to be exception, not the rule. And I've learned that here it's been the rule and not the exception. So I think we're going to see a lot more micro developments. And that's kind of my opinion and just where I sit.
Chair, could you help me understand why it's a bad thing if more applications for planned unit developments come in?
I think planned unit development should be used as an exclusionary piece, not the rule for how we do developments. We tend to seem to, like I said, I don't think we've seen one development come through here just using the normal zoning and seeking variances. I would say it's pretty close to 100% of everything that has come through this forum in the last 5 years has come in as a PUD. I don't think when we went through training, we all learned of training through outside organizations. And, you know, they even told us planning and developments are supposed to be used an exception to the rule for doing development in the city. And I don't see us using them in that method. And I see us now doing potentially a lot of micro projects just to circumvent the zoning code. That's my opinion, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. We all have a voice, and we all have a different voice.
Mr. Chair, I mean, we have to remember too that the items that are coming before the Planning Commission are the exceptions to what's happening all the time. People are doing construction projects and improvements, and those don't come before us because they follow the existing zoning code. So by nature, the things that come before us are often going to be the exceptions, and usually will be. And in the past year, we've not had all that many PUDs come through. And whether they use the variance or the PUD process, it doesn't really matter if we're getting feedback, we're making the same policy discussions, and the city council is taking the feedback, and everyone is having the discussion. Which of those channels they use to make the same thing happen seems to be kind of a moot point. And especially since our peer cities don't have the lot size requirement, it doesn't seem like there's something so special that we would need it.
What I'd like to say is my understanding is if it's a 1 acre lot or if it's a 0.5 acre lot, we're still going to look at the proposal. We're still going to look at what works for that lot. The same way we have been. So I'm personally comfortable with what's proposed.
Okay. Absolutely, that's fine. I said, like, we all have different voices. We all have different opinions. You know, that brings good dialogue within this organization, within the planning commission that we have.
That's good conversation you started. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Chair, I'd just say that I support the changes. I think that a PUD allows the city and during a review to have to negotiate a better development for the city. Like when a developer comes forward and asks for a PUD, it's saying that that developer is going to offer something extraordinary, and that is a conversation that I think that city staff has done a really good job at negotiating trade-offs with the PUD designation. Given that our peer cities do not require the minimum, I don't, and given that there's extensive review and a PUD process, I am comfortable with the change.
Okay. Any more discussion? Do we have a motion? Absolutely.
City staff, to the question that we had during the public hearing, would this apply differently to different zoning districts in the city? And if there were any other things that were brought up during that you could address during the comments that you wanted to comment on, please do.
Yes, Commissioner Sturza. This would only apply to PUD districts. If a property is not currently zoned as a PUD district, which, let's see, we have PMR, which is planned multifamily. We have PC2, which is planned general commercial. PMU, it's planned mixed use. So those are some of the districts we currently have. if a proposal came through for a property that was not one of those districts, they would have to apply for rezoning and probably comprehensive plan amendment. So it would really only impact properties that are currently zoned as a planned unit development. So the ones I listed. Let's see. And I think the other comment was, how would neighbors find out about something like this? We always do a mailing to properties within, remind me, 350 feet of a proposed development and 500 feet if it's a zoning code change or comprehensive plan amendment change. So neighbors would get a postcard. And it's also published in the Sun Current. So we do notify when there's a amendment to a planned unit development or a new planned unit development proposal that comes in. I think that answered everything, but let me know if I missed something.
Could I ask a follow-up, just because I thought I understood this and now I'm confused. So my understanding is that this might, this change might occur if somebody came in and asked for a rezoning and asked to get rezoned to a PUD. You're telling me that, or from what I heard, you're saying that it actually is more likely to affect currently zoned PUD properties?
Commissioner Sursa, yeah, that is correct. So if there's a property that isn't zoned as a PUD right now, they'd have to go through the rezoning application. And I don't think we have, if there's a PUD district that was or a property that was bigger than an acre that was subdivided, it would still be zoned PUD. But now it could be subdivided into a smaller portion. Otherwise, yes, it would be new properties that are under an acre that haven't been a PUD before.
And just to clarify, any property could ask, with any zoning in the city, could ask for a PUD rezoning.
Commissioner Sursa, yes. We generally, in zoning, in the practice of planning and zoning, we don't do spot zoning. So if somebody within what is normally just a regular low-density residential zoning district, one property applied for a PUD, we would probably have trouble approving that because that's considered spot zoning. So it would have to be not sort of a standalone rezoning application.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion. We don't need to state it anymore, right? Or yes, I move that.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have any discussion? All right. No discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Say no? No? Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is the liaison reports. Community Service Advisory Commission. No report. City Council.
Yes, Chair. The City Council met on February 14th for a work session to discuss their approach for evaluating projects submitted for Corridors of Commerce funding. I understand there are 3 projects they discussed at that work session related to projects on 62, 494, and Easy Pass lanes on 494 as well. Following that, on 214, there was a meeting of the City Council where Richfield, the city declared February Black History Month and celebrated the 100th birthday of a resident. On the 15th, they went to Wood Lake to review the city's strategic plan. So that's what I've got for that report.
Thank you. HRA.
At the last HRA meeting, the HRA voted to approve a request from Oaks on Pleasant, the apartment building that is on 66, kind of by the McDonald's and Lindale. That's kind of offset behind there, to reduce the required affordability requirement from 25 years to 22 years, because they received TIF, they had a 25-year requirement, and they could have asked 15 years into it to reduce the affordability requirement. They waited until now, and the HRA did approve the reduction.
All right, Richfield School Board. Transportation Commission.
I had a report, but Commissioner Keneally covered it in his. It was regarding the quarters of commerce applications for the projects on Highway 62 and 494.
Fantastic. The next item on the report is the city planners report. Staff? The report.
Chair Rudolph, I have nothing to report.
Our next Planning Commission meeting is a regular meeting on March 27th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers here at City Hall. And the last item on our agenda is adjournment. Do we have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
For that, it's all been a pleasure being your chair for the last year. I'm glad everybody, I know a lot of people in the Planning Commission are rather new over the last couple of years, and it's good to see you step up and take active roles in the Planning Commission. We've got those motions. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. See you next month.